What's cracking, everyone? Friedemann Findeisen here from Songwriting, and welcome to Livestream number 93 in the same shirt, same room, same weekend. So, here we go. This one is called Release Dates because if you've been following me on YouTube, you might have seen a post coming by where I released the official release dates for my 4 upcoming products this year and early next year. So let's go through those really quickly together so you don't forget them and you can write them down in your calendar. First of all is going to be the new book, The Tracking Journal. And if you've been following me on Instagram, you might have seen this cover already. Forget about this little line here. That's just for the proof copy that I have right here. This is going to be the next thing that's going to release. This is going to release on September 3rd. I still have some small adjustments to make before this goes out into production. We got the record, Kano Head, the Kano Head record titled Subface, which comes out on my 30th birthday on October 13th. I'm super excited about that. So far, the feedback I've gotten has been honestly overwhelming. Extremely positive. I've never had anything like this happen. It's been extremely positive, and I'm really happy with it as well. Like, I've been listening to it nonstop while I was in Krakow, and I'm really happy with the result. We got the songwriting decks, which are also teasered a little bit on my Instagram, which are going to release in November 2019. And by release in this case, I mean the Kickstarter goes live in November, because this is a fairly involved production. For that, I will do some. I'm going to do some crowdfunding. So that's going to go live in November. And then lastly, the board game I've been working on since 2011, really, like for the past 8 years on and off, is finally releasing in February next year. And this is going to be released through a publisher, one of the biggest board game publishers around, Lookout Games. And that's going to be in February 2020. So I'm super excited about that. We're going to teaser the game this year already at Essen. If you're into board games at all, you'll know that Essen is the biggest convention in the world about board games. So we're going to be there, of course, and we're going to teaser the final game, and we're also going to show the prototype for the final game, so you can get a little bit of an idea what this game is. And if you live in Germany or Europe, for that matter, coming to Essen is never a bad choice. I think Essen is one of the coolest conventions in the world. It's really a lot of fun. You can play games, you can buy games, meet other board gamers. It's a lot of fun, and you can meet me because I'll be at the Lookout stand pretty much all the time explaining the prototype. All right, so there we go again. I'm gonna say those dates one more time. The Tracking Journal, that's the new book, comes out September 3rd. The Kano Head record Subface comes out October 13th. Songwriting decks for the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is going to go live in November this year, and the board game Cantaloupe releases next year in February. All right, so let's get to the thing that we're actually here for. Let's get to some song analyses. Okay, I think the first one we're going to tackle today is going to be Marcus Isaiah's song, who says, "Hey there, I'm trying to finalize the arrangement of the song so that it's conductive to a late night drive type of vibe. Looking forward to your feedback and thank you in advance." Oh, that sounds cool. I like those kind of songs, so I'm excited to hear what you got in store for us. Civic Russian.
This that riding music, this that sliding music, this that get back to those times in Civic I was cruising down Valencia, letting my mind sway. I'm passing by the obstacles that's getting in my way. First hand witness to the crime rate. Haven't been up in the church, but now I'm thanking God for Friday. And even though it hurts when all I do is work, I'm looking forward to the time frame when I'm paid. Cruising down Valencia, feeling like I'm gifted as a messenger, and letting up is not an option. Steady plotting at an early age, you can say I was destined young, but always old enough to know what pressure was and what that stressing does. Exams upon demand, and yet them streets were always testing us. Inspired by the climb, it's a fire in my mind, so let's find out what that weapon does before they get the best of us. I'm inspired by the fire in my mind, so let's find out what that weapon does. This that riding music, this that sliding music, this that get back to those times in Civic I was cruising down Valencia, letting my mind sway. I'm passing by the obstacles that's getting in my way. First had witness to the crime rate. Haven't been up in the church, but now I'm thanking God for Friday. And even though it hurts when all I do is work, I'm looking forward to the time frame when I'm paid. Way too many of my people catching strays. Madness and humane society is quietly mistaken blame, and then they take a name at those of us that's underpaid. But maybe if we had a living wage, we wouldn't have to live this way. Truth be told, I'm in survival mode until another raise. Barely phased, stuck on going, I won't fold and I won't hold my breath unless I'm in the depths of money tank. So I'ma study game until I'm catching sunny rays on Jamaican bays. Yeah, gliding in them planes, yeah, sliding in them caves, yeah. Better life for me and mine. I'ma start by making A's, then I'm breaking chains. Abolition on a mission, stemming from ambition mixed with all my pain. And the only time I'm switching is more change up in my name. Mister, take a picture now, cause my position won't remain. And this I have proclaimed, ain't been the same since April 28, yeah. This that riding music, this that sliding music, this that get back to those times in Civic I was cruising down Valencia, letting my mind sway. I'm passing by the obstacles that's getting in my way. First had witness to the crime rate. Haven't been up in the church, but now I'm thanking God for Friday. And even though it hurts when all I do is work, I'm looking forward to the time frame when I'm paid.
Very cool. Very cool, man. I like it. I like it a lot. I like your voice. I like your timing. I like your flow. That all works really well for me, and I totally feel you, man. This is definitely like a great record for listening to on the road. Really like it, man. Really good job. So the only thing that kind of there were two kind of moments that took me out of it just a little bit. Don't think it would be too much of an issue, honestly, because it's, you know, it's hip hop, it's rap, so it's really all about, like, I think the core elements are all there, you know. I think the song works as it is, so you could release that, you know. I think it works really quite well. For the only thing that I have to say about it is more on the level of like smoothing out like some edges, and maybe that's not even what you want. So take whatever I have to say with a grain of salt. Now, one thing I really don't quite like is the intro, like that hi-hat in the intro, this part here. I think the intro would just be much stronger without a hi-hat there. Like if it was just the bass and that kind of synth in the background, I think that would be much stronger. Like the thing is, if you introduce a hi-hat this early, it's a tell that there's going to be drum set later on, and I just like a little bit of that tension of like, when is the beat going to come in? Is there going to be a beat? What's the drum going to sound like? What are the drums going to sound like? So as soon as you introduce that hi-hat already that early, I think you're kind of ruining that surprise just a little bit. I also don't think that the rhythm is clear enough, so you don't need that like 1, 2, 3, 4, so we know where the counts are. I think the groove is fairly clear, I think. So I don't think you need it functionally at all. And right now it's just giving something away that's going to come in later. Also, it's more of a thing, like doing this kind of thing is what you'll see a lot of live drummers do, and your drum sound is a real like sampled, highly technical, highly digital kind of sound. It's not a real drummer, right? Which is cool. I really like that, you know, don't get me wrong. But it's not something, so this is a programmed drum groove, right? So having then someone counting in the band, which places this more in a live setting, feels like a disconnect to me. So the whole reason why this is being done with the counting is so that the whole band can sort of play together better. But since all of this is programmed anyways, this is like there's a little bit of a disconnect happening there. See what I mean? Because the drums are playing as if it was a live band, while the drums are actually programmed and everything is programmed, right? So there, I would just take that out. And the other little moment that I thought didn't work as well is this bit here.
Before they get the best of us.
I think that transition is just falls a little bit flat. Maybe you can just like, I don't know, something to like on the one of that, when the energy jumps down, when we have that energy drop, I kind of feel like there should be something there, like a one-time thing, like a, or like a, something that kind of smooths out that really harsh kind of drop there. So there's two ways you could spin this. It could either be before they get the best of us, and then it goes down to that really low energy level. So in other words, you do like a fake surprise. So you're going up in, sorry, this way around from your perspective. You're going up energy, up, building tension, and then you have that huge drop. That's a very emotional moment. That can work really well. But what you're doing right now is like it stops. So there's tension, but then there's no resolve. It's a weird thing that you're doing because the music drops out and then it comes back in, but it's super soft. It's super low energy. So that moment, I would take another look at that moment. What I really like about your style, though, is how you interact with the drum groove. I think it's really cool. I mean, you have a really nice flow. I think your timing is excellent. I think your lyrics are very cool. And I really like how you kind of drop out the beat every once in a while. And how you do that, when you do that, I think is very creative. And it's not like the typical thing you would often hear. It's a little bit more than that. So it makes it a little bit more interesting to listen to, I think. Because you play really well with expectations in this, I think. Now, the rapping does get maybe a little bit cyclical. It falls into this monotonous thing after a while. So after I've heard it for the first 2/3, I feel like I kind of want to hear like something a little bit different now. This is, again, take this with a grain of salt, because if this is just one song on the record, that's totally fine. But if this were your single, I would seek to put in something that contrasts the sort of monotony of your rapping a little bit. And monotony doesn't have to be a negative thing. Quite the contrary. I think for something like this, for a night drive kind of song, we want to have something monotonous, something that just has a nice drive, a nice flow, and that doesn't kind of break from that too much, right? But if you want to make this your standout piece, I would try to throw in just a bit more variation, a little bit more maybe. And I like the, when I get, at the end of your chorus, you kind of fall into almost like a melody for a quick second. And I was like, oh yeah, I like that. Do more of that. Just play with that just a little bit more. So when I get, and let just that just like peter out a little bit, like let that fade out a little bit. Put some reverb on it or something, so that kind of simmers over the rest of the chorus. You know what I mean? I think that could be really cool. And yeah, so just like a little bit of pitch, maybe some different types of intensity with the vocals here or there could work really well. Again, the track works as it is. And this is just if I were seeking to make this even more radio friendly, I would try to find some bits where there's a little bit more variation in your song. Because right now it is fairly monotonous. And again, that is a very good thing, and I like it. It has a really nice drive to it. But if you're looking at it from several different angles, this might be something that you could work with. And I'm sure you could find a way to make this a little bit less monotonous that still has the same drive, that still has that same energy. All right, cool. Hopefully that was a little bit helpful at least. Cool. All right, moving on to a song by Buck Riley, who says, "Hey, bud, thanks for your help on the last song I sent in. It's a shame I wasn't there to listen to the critiques live." That is true. You're probably not here either today, are you? No, we only have one viewer right now, and that's probably because it's a Sunday afternoon and America's still asleep. All right. Okay. The EP's finished now. Great. Congratulations, man. Here's the last song I never sent in because it turned out pretty good from the get-go. I'm really happy with it. I don't know what happened with this one, but everything just fit together right from the start. Okay, and you got the full EP. You sent in the full EP as well, about 13 minutes long. If you're interested in how your critiques affected the final outcome of the song, ooh, I would be very interested in that. If you Dude Buck, if you want to send in those songs in the future, like I kind of make a point out of just listening to one song every week per person. But if you don't have anything to send in because you didn't work on anything or something, please feel free to send in those songs. I'd be interested in hearing how they turned out. That'd be super exciting for me to check out. All right. Here is Oh Yeah by Exit Mouse. Or I think the game is Exit Mouse, right? All right, let's check it out. Cool, man. All right, I dig it. Yeah, cool. Nice energy. This feels like something that could be running over the titles or during the game or something like that. So what it sounds like to me is this is like in-game music. So the focus is going to be elsewhere, and this is just basically a nice little basic kind of noise level, noise floor, so to say. I think it's not a proper song, so to say. It doesn't have a real structure or anything like that. It doesn't have a lot of tension going through it. But I think if that's what it sets out to do, if it's based basically like background music for something, I think it works really well. I think it's got all the right things. The oh yeahs work really well. I think the melody's cool. So as this is already done, I'm not going to comment on it too much. But I have noticed a couple of things over the last couple of songs I've heard from you. And so maybe we should talk about that now and kind of summarize all of that and see how we can take this further on the next couple of productions that you will be doing. I think one of my main pieces of criticism would be, not criticism, but points of improvement. I think your biggest point of improvement right now is because you are a good writer, you have a good sense of like how a band works together and all that stuff. You have some nice musical ideas. I think your biggest point of improvement right now is the recording process. And by that, I mean both the sound design of the guitars and the bass, as well as the actual recording. So let's talk about recording first, because that's quickly talked about, even though it's more difficult to do and easier to talk about than to actually do. Your timing could be better. It's not bad. Don't get me wrong. It's fine, but it definitely could be better. It could be snappier. It could be tighter, because this is the kind of music that needs like this really, really sharp kind of timing. Da 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 da. That needs to be just right on the beat. And right now it's just a little too fuzzy. It's just a little rough around the edges. And for this kind of music, which needs so much energy, and the energy really comes from like the perfect timing as well. That's a big part of it, I think. I'm not getting that enough. I think that's something that you should really work on for the future. I have a course for that, which you can check out on my website, called the 30-Day Rhythm Challenge, which is just $7. And I think it will really help you. That's the exercise that I did to improve my timing. And it's definitely something I think you should work on. And also to be able to hear that kind of thing, because I think the track is really lacking power. The mix is lacking power, not because of your mixing abilities, but really because the timing isn't quite great. And so when you have, like, for example, the guitarist playing in the background, like playing a riff, and then a solo comes on top of it, to me, I'm just hearing this kind of thing. It's just kind of wobbly. It's not like everyone's playing together and it's got this huge boost when the solo comes in. It feels like everyone is just kind of moving subtly around the beats, instead of like just really being rigorously, like, with the maximum amount of power that this track could have. So timing, I think, is something you should take another look at. And you're by no means bad at it. Don't get me wrong. Really, you're not. But pay a little bit more attention to it in the future. And you might want to watch a video that I did on the main channel, where I wrote a song pretty much live on the channel. I wasn't actually writing it. I was editing and recording guitar parts. Do check out that video and see how much time I put into making sure the timing is absolutely perfect, and using flex time to move them exactly to the beat. A lot of editing, a lot of going back and forth, and then reamping it later on, so that I get the perfect guitar sound with the perfect timing. Please do watch that video. I think it would be an eye-opener for you. And if it's not, then you should ask yourself why, because I think you're probably not paying enough attention then. Like, this is something you definitely should pay more attention to, and I think that video is going to show you exactly how to do that kind of thing. I can find out what the video is called, by the way. Let me just give it a quick look here. So if you go on Holistic Songwriting, let me just check that out for you, in case someone else wants to find it, and this is like far into the future. You'll still be able to find it. Okay. So this would be recording metal guitars to an original song live. That's what the video is called. It's a 3 hour and 10-minute video, and it's basically just me going over that, how to record rock guitars. All right. So that, I think, should be a mandatory watch for you. Also, please do get the 30-Day Rhythm Challenge. Not because I care about the $7, but because I think it really would be helpful to you. Okay. And the other side of the recording process is the sound design. I think your guitars sound too thin. They are just kind of like, it feels just like it's just fuzz, and I don't really hear enough of like the actual chords. It doesn't have a lot of impact. The bass is the exact opposite. It has too much room in the arrangement. I think it's there for all the harmony, and it's like, it's got like a huge bottom sound. But what I'd rather see is like a bass that kind of fits into the arrangement a little bit better, and guitars that take over more space, instead of having the bass be super prominent and the guitar is just kind of like the small thing that sits on top, So I want to hear the two fuse together a little bit more. Obviously, that's a question of a matter of taste as well. And I really like it if we can hear the bass, but it's definitely like melting together with the guitars. There's some people who don't like that. Listen to the new Tool album and you'll know what I mean. There you really have a very distinct bass sound and a very distinct guitar sound. It really depends on what you're trying to do. But I think for this kind of music, to me, it makes sense to have we should still be able to hear the bass, but the bass should kind of fuse together with the guitars. So you get this V sound, right? You got the guitars up here and the bass down here, and they're all melted together to kind of fill out that. So you get this connected thing. So everything is just one wall of sound. That's kind of what I want to hear with this kind of music. Right, and I think the way you do that is find a distortion for the bass, because right now it's super clean and just it sounds really neutral. It's not giving me any emotion. So find a distortion that makes it glue together with the guitars, and find a fuller sound for the guitars, something that just has a little bit more bottom, a little bit more low end. I think you're cutting away at your guitars too high. I think you're using a low cut on those, and it's too high for sure. You want that, distinction is all, fine, but you still want that glue with the bass so that it all feels like one massive wall of guitar, okay? And that I think is probably my biggest point of improvement for you for the last couple of songs I've heard from you. Because again, this music is so energetic, and it needs the timing, I think, and it needs those sounds. And I think if you can handle that, if you can get a grip on that, dude, man, I mean, your songs are great. I think it's going to be a no-brainer after that. Like, it's really going to be really easy to fall in love with your songs. And right now, that's the only thing that I feel is holding you back. All right, moving on to the next song. This one is by Georgie Rebel, who says, "Hello, love your channel and content. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very inspiring. Instantly subscribed and found you had Patreon and offer feedback. Would love to hear your feedback about my song. Thank you, dude. Super happy you're joining us, and welcome to the community. Just happy to have you here. All right, look at that. It's called Don't Wait for Tomorrow. Oh, cool. All right. So metal, I like it. Okay. Cool. I like it. There's some cool stuff in here. I think you have a cool vocal sound. I think you got some cool guitar sounds. I think you have some cool riffs. I think all the elements are there. what's kind of not working for me, I think, is the mix, which is fine. It's okay. But I think it needs some more energy in there. And I wonder if you could get a little bit more energy out of your vocals as well. And I think there's some structural things going on that I think we could probably improve upon. Okay, so again, I think you have a really nice energy. The whole song, flows pretty well, except from the couple of things that I'm going to mention in just a second. But it has a nice flow to it. I think there's a good energy in general. The guitar sounds are actually pretty cool. Yeah, I like it. This is the kind of music I like listening to. So for me, very cool. I like the sound atmosphere of it. Definitely speaks to me, and I like how you're combining like the heavy kind of riffs with like the wow wow, with those little harmonic options there. I quite like that. Okay, so where do we start? First of all, I think the thing that bothers me the most, I think, is what I want from this kind of music is just a pure burst of energy, right? This should just carry me from start to finish, and it should just be drive, like full energy throughout. I'm sure that's what you're looking for with this track as well. And there's just a couple of moments that break that drive for me. And that's started really early on here. Right? I like a little bit of that because it amps up the tension for the chorus, but it feels like you just went a little bit too long with that. See what this would sound like if we just did half of it. See what I mean? Just damn, and then you go back into it. See what I mean? So, because the longer you make that break, yeah, it's on one hand side, it's possible to amp up the tension the longer it is, but it's really difficult to do that. It's definitely possible if you want to keep it this long. It's definitely possible to do that, but you're going to need to get out your mixing tricks, and use like some filters or some automation, or have a bass guitar that comes in halfway and does something. There needs to be more build up to the chorus if you want to do that. But you can't keep it just really this short, like dam, 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 da, 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 dam, and then go back into it. If it's just that short, there's nothing else is necessary. You just have a really powerful little section right before the chorus that I think is going to build up the tension really nicely. Then after the first chorus, we get this. Which to me almost feels more like a bridge. And then this comes back in, which we've already heard, so it feels a little... So, and then once the shout comes in, which I love that build up, and then how it goes back in is great. But as soon as that shout comes in, I'm like, oh, okay, it was just a build up to the second verse. And for that, it's just way too long because nobody's really waiting for the second verse. If we're going to use a build up, it's typically going to be for the chorus or for the most heavy hitting section of the song. And okay, well, in this case, your verse is a pretty heavy hitting section, sure. But I think if you cut that a little bit shorter, if you edited that down a little bit, I think it would be much stronger. So, for example, let's see if we can, if just with a couple of clicks, solve that problem. So, okay, I probably wouldn't go in this. This is too low energy for me. So. I think that would work better for me. Like if we just cut out that first section there, and then maybe even have some. Is there percussion in this? I think I would personally I would add in a little bit more percussion there, like like a little bit of a drum roll or something. And then we go back into the verse, right? Something like that, and something that just builds more tension, because that's what really is needed here, I think. I mean, you can see it in the audio curve here as well. I mean, look at that. That's really cool. You can really see that there's, and this is, I mean, I don't know if you can see this, but where I'm clicking right now, like this section here, you can really see it in the audio curve that there's a buildup happening and that there's a lot of automation going on. It just doesn't feel like it quite yet. it's not extreme enough. I think you probably want to do a little bit more build up in this section. If you want to use it that long, or if you're cutting it down, even then I would probably add in a little bit more automation. I would personally cut off the first half here, just go into the bit with the guitars immediately, or just anyways, just shorten it down. That's the most important point here. Just don't make that too long. Same thing happens over here with this section, right? It's the same as before. You just want to cut that down to like half of that. It's really difficult to sustain tension for such a long time, and right now it's, what is it, 4 bars instead of 2 bars sustaining tension, like when we're all waiting for the chorus, is great. I think 4 bars is pushing it a little bit. Again, I'm not saying it's not possible, but that would be a little bit of a challenge for sure. Okay, so that's that about the whole structuring of the song. Again, I think it works pretty well. It's just those few instances that kind of took me out of it. The other thing I wanted to talk about is your vocal sound, which I think you can still work on a little bit. I'm sure you know this, and so it's always a painful thing for me to talk about, because your voice is such a personal thing, and nobody likes talking about improving their voice. Everyone, like, it's songwriting seems to be easier to talk about, but vocals are such a personal thing. It's your voice, so it's always difficult for me to talk about that, because it feels like it always sounds like a terribly offensive thing to people. But I really do believe that the vocals are something that you can work on. And, I had that experience very much with the Kano Head record, where, it's an opposite of night and day, listening to my first demos that I recorded and listening to the final thing. And in between, I did vocal training for a couple of weeks, right? You can really, really, really tell the difference. And it's not that I wasn't trying with the demos. I was giving it my all. It's just that I learned a couple of techniques, and I trained every day, and I went to a vocal coach, and really things had gotten so much better. So right now what I'm hearing is like, this kind of way of shouting, which is, again, so using a lot of breath, which over the long run, first of all, is not great for your voice, because whispering is one of the worst things you can do to your voice, because your vocal cords are just going all over the place. So not a good thing. If you want to do this long term, if you're thinking about a career in metal music for the next 10, 20 years, and if you want to play, 2-3 gigs every week, then it's something to think about. Like, you won't be able to keep this up forever. And also, I know how it is performing this way on stage, because I did the same thing when I started out with my metal band back when I was 15 or whatever. I would use the same kind of technique, just basically whispering and just being very close to the microphone to get like the shouty kind of sounds. The thing is, when you do that live, not just because it's healthier for your vocal cords, but also because it's going to sound more aggressive. There's a difference between and there's a big difference between those two. And I think, one of them, first of all, is all louder. And when you're on stage shouting like that, it really feels like you're singing with a lot of power, and you can get 100% into the music. Whereas with the other one, it's more of a technical thing to kind of get the sound that you want. But again, it's not really the sound that you want, right? Obviously, you want a more aggressive sound. Now, I've talked about finding your shout vocals before, like finding that voice before on the live stream, but I don't think you were there for that. So let me just give you a quick rundown of it. First of all, I would recommend you check out, there's oh God, what's that called? Let me see if I can find it for you, because I have it here somewhere. Let's see, vocal exercises, is that it? Nope. Or is it? Hold on. No, that's a different one. Screaming Lessons by, what's that guy called again? Rick, no, was it? It's not Rick Tamlin. Hold on. Okay, well, I got the Screamer's Guide. Okay, yeah, it's Jamie Vendera. Vendera. Jamie, Jaime. Jamie Vendera, Extreme Scream Volume 1 is the one I'd recommend you check out. That's the one that I learned how to scream from, and it just kind of clicked for me. It might not happen for you, because I've done a lot of these before, and for some reason this was the one that just like, oh, it's that easy, that's what I have to do. Yeah, so anyways, it helped me. Maybe it's gonna help you too, and it wasn't that expensive. I think it was like $30 or something, which is fine in my book for something that can really change your vocals for the better. So I also really recommend you seek out a professional singing coach. And the way I did it was I went to a musical singer, and she was great because musical singers are taught to sing, to project, to be as loud as possible, because sometimes they have to sing without microphones, and they have to really learn how to project so their vocals can be heard in the last kind of row, right? So that was great because with metal, it's kind of the same thing. Like we want to have this huge sound, and so I felt like musical was a really great way to learn that. Obviously, I would have gone to a metal singer if there was one in my neighborhood. I've just, through experience, I found it's really difficult to find people who actually can teach shouting. And so I went there to learn proper vocal technique, to open up everything up here so that there's no tension, nothing going on up here, and all the power comes from down here. And, just saying that is not going to help you. You really have to feel it. You really have to understand. You have to experiment a little bit to figure out how that works. And you have to have a professional coach to show you how that works, give you the right pointers, like opening your mouth the right way, where the tongue goes, exercises like when you're feeling strain, like turning your head a little bit. So it's more difficult to be tense up here. There's all these exercises, all these really helpful things that a vocal coach can teach you. If they see what you're doing, they can just react and see like, oh hey, your larynx is too low or your larynx is too high or whatever. They can watch you, monitor you, and give you real-time feedback. So that's why I think that's really super helpful. So that's definitely one part of it. Again, musical singers I think are great for metal singers because they have the volume and they have the projection. And then and the other side of it is just experimenting. For the Volcano Head record, I just really like practiced every day, and it was just like I just tried to, because I could do the lower kind of scream for a good while, but I never could push it higher. I for some reason I couldn't get it up the scale, and so that's something the vocal coach really helped me with, to be able to, because I could sing higher notes, but I couldn't shout them. So opening up everything up here definitely helped me with that. And then it was just a lot of experimentation. And I would just like sit on the piano every day and just hit that note and be like, okay, I can still sing that. Let's try to push it half a note higher. And I tried that, and it wouldn't work. So I'd have to try something different with my vocals, and until I could manage, and you'd kind of nudge your way up. So now I think I can pretty much scream every note that I can sing. There's a couple where it gets really thin, because the higher I go, the more intense it also gets, because I don't just have to produce the note. I also have to create the grizzle, the distortion on top of it, which does take even more energy. But I think it's definitely worth it. I think the Volcano Head record turned out really well. It has some really powerful vocals, I think. And now, honestly, I use the distortion technique that I learned. I use that on pretty much all of my vocals. Whenever I'm looking for rock sound, I'll always use the distortion, just to a lesser degree. I think it just sounds more powerful when you sing, say hi to forgotten buried dreams, right? Say hi to forgotten buried dreams. The vocals just sound a little bit thicker. There's a little bit, the distortion just, it doesn't sound distorted. It's not, say hi to forgotten. It's not that. It's just adding a little bit more fatness to the vocal sound. And I think, for rock music, just having a little bit of that distortion in there makes you glue better with the rest of the music as well. Okay. So hopefully that gave you some good pointers. We talked about a lot here. I'd be really excited to hear more from you, and hope to hear some more metal songs from you soon. And hopefully you can work on that. Again, if you're thinking about this long term, I highly recommend you work on your vocal, on your sound production. Right. All right, next song comes to us from CP10, who says, "This is a song I'm writing. Please help me with your feedback to continue my work. Thanks." All right, will do. Let's check it out. This is called The Other Side.
Close your eyes. Would you mind if I take you on a magic ride? Turn off your mind, take it easy, everything's gonna be alright. All the mess you feel, we will left behind. All you need to do is just close your eyes. Close your eyes. Would you mind if I take out the light? Follow me to the other side. Just follow me There's a rising moon shining on the shore. Just follow me to the other side. Just follow me to the other side. Just follow me to the other side. Running up that hill, left the tears behind. Just follow me to the other side.
Okay. All right, there's some good and bad in this. I think the production sounds pretty good in general. I think the vocal sound definitely needs work, but the music sounds pretty good. The backing track, there's some pretty cool sound design, and it sounds it doesn't sound old fashioned or anything like that. So the sounds are well chosen, I think. It also builds quite nicely. I think there's some pretty nice moments in here. Maybe that drop here in the middle is maybe again a tad too long. I think you'd probably have to edit that down a little bit, maybe to half the length or something like that, so that you don't lose the drive, because you want that to build tension instead of like, you know, the song kind of petering out and just being like done, and then it starts back up again. So personally, I would cut that down. The biggest thing is certainly the vocals here. That's certainly the biggest point of improvement. By that I mean both the sound design of it in terms of the production, but so mix-wise, EQing-wise, and like timing-wise, it doesn't quite fit into the track. It feels like it's on top of the track instead of with the track. You know what I mean? Or it's like separate from the track. On top of, you know, track can sometimes be a good thing. What I mean is it's separate from the track. It doesn't gel with the rest of the mix. But the more important thing though is your vocal performance. It's got a little bit of it's got something. It's not a terrible vocal sound. Don't get me wrong. Like there's something there. It reminded me a little bit of a Chet Baker. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was a jazz singer from the, I want to say, 60s. Fantastic documentary on his life called Let's Get Lost. Very, very much worth seeing. He was a trumpet player, but also a singer. If you want to check out more of his stuff, check out Chet Baker Sings. Chet Baker is a different guy. That's the electronic music producer. Okay, Chet Baker. So it reminded me a little bit of that, but then without the conviction, you know. With Chet Baker, it makes kind of sense because the music is, first of all, way more relaxed and way more calm, and it's like this really very typical kind of West Coast jazz of like very, very calm and very, you know, it's cool jazz essentially. And here, the music has a little bit more drive to it, so I'm not sure if this vocal sound will work here. If it does, there's a couple of things you have to, if you want it to work, if this has to work, there's a couple of things I would suggest. First of all, pay a lot of attention to your timing. If you have a quantized backing track like you have here, this is 100% electronical. This is no organic sounds whatsoever in the music production. Then the vocals should sound like that as well. Because right now the vocals are super alive and the music is dead, for lack of a better word. I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's just that is all programmed, and then the vocals are the only thing that's kind of like lively, so to say. And so I would work on making the vocals sound a little more robotic. I would do that through autotune, through vocoders, through a lot of EQing, through effects, through reverbs, anything to make them sound more like the rest of the track. Or you make the rest of the track sound a little bit more alive, which is, you know, depends on what kind of effect you're going for. And there's nothing wrong with having a dead track, so to say. Personally, I like the live stuff much better. I like it when even electronic music producers play everything on the keyboard instead of programming it in, because it sounds a little bit more alive again, you know. Even though it's, you know, all sample patches, I like it if there's just a small timing inconsistencies that show me that, like, oh, hey, someone actually played this. Like, for example, for the entire Bruno Mars album, 24 Karat Magic, that's all synthesizers, but it's all played on actual synthesizers, and you can hear that. Like, the timing is just is so great, you know. This was played by actual musicians and not by a computer. So work on your timing for your vocals. Work on your vocal sound. Find something that sounds a little bit more, that has a little bit more confidence. Sound a little bit more confidence. Right now, it's just very. You sound a little bit afraid of ruining the track. No, you have to take control of your track. That's one of the most important things you can do as a vocalist, is to be able to take control of the track. You're the most important thing. Everyone's going to be listening to you, so you need to take control. You need to learn that. If you don't want to do any of that, and I suggest you do, it's always good to be able to record your own demos, then find yourself a singer who can do that kind of thing. Because your melodies are actually pretty good. Like, there's definitely some good stuff here. There's a few things I would maybe change about the melody, and like sometimes like, I would probably like truncate the melody just a little bit, make it a little bit shorter, a little bit punchier here or there. But the melodies are actually quite good. There's actually some pretty good material here. And if you give this to a skilled vocalist, I think she's gonna, or he's gonna, I was hearing a female vocal on this personally. She's gonna take that to the next level, I think, all by herself, just by singing it naturally the way it feels right to her. Yeah, but I think that's pretty much it. I think it's pretty good. Again, the vocal sound, I think, at this point pulls everything back down. So again, that's your biggest point of improvement. If you take care of that, I think, you got something here. All right, cool. Hopefully that helped a little bit and it wasn't too demotivating, because that's really not how I mean this. But again, I know how difficult it is to talk about vocal sounds because it's such a personal thing to everyone. But honestly, it just comes from a good place. I just want you to improve, and that sometimes means like poking at the parts that hurt, and unfortunately in your case that's the vocals. So that's something you have to take care of one way or the other, whether that means finding someone who can record those vocals for you or working on your vocal sound. Because right now, that's the one thing that's pulling the quality of your track back down. It's kind of the same thing for me, for example, for Kano Head, right? I was really thinking a lot about, I really wanted to do a music video, but any idea that I come up with would not be able to, I wouldn't be able to match the quality of the music with it. And so I feel like any video that I make is only going to pull down the quality of the music. So I've chosen to just release the songs as songs, not with a music video. Maybe for the next album or for the next single or something like that. Maybe someday. But not right now, because right now I feel like whatever's in my, whatever possibilities I have, whatever options I have in terms of budget or with the people I know that can make these kinds of videos, I feel like anything I make is not going to be able to reach the quality of the music, and so I'm not going to do it. I'm very conscious of that, and I would love to have a music video. I think music videos are so cool, and they give something a completely different vibe. But I just know I won't be able to reach that quality, so I don't do it. Right? So I have to be honest with myself at that point as well, and that's the point for me that hurts at the most right now. Okay, so just to tell you, you're not the only one struggling with this, and I've been making music for a very, very long time, and I've been making music videos for a very long time. But still, I'm like, okay, well, if I release this as a music video, the video is just, that's going to be the biggest issue, and I don't think I can get that to high enough a quality to make it worth my while. So there you go. I'm just saying it how it is, trying to be realistic and saying like, okay, well, maybe next time, maybe at some point I'll have the budget for doing something that I actually want to release. All right. Cool. Last song for today is again by Sam, who says, Fried. Full stop. It's me again, and I have a big favor to ask. My band and I are recording an album this week, and we just reworked this song, and I'd really love your thoughts on the structure before we go record drums for it. I'll sit out of next song review if you could please listen and give your thoughts this week. Oh, okay. This was 4 hours ago? Oh, perfect. Okay, great. I feel really good about that, because if it was like from 2 weeks ago, I would feel really awful right now. Very happy to hear that, that I still got to do this. Okay. Okay. I'll sit out now. Okay. Yep. Okay. So this song is called In the Open, or In the Moment. This track is a demo and a bit wonky due to me playing with what key it's in. Okay. My vocal in the first verse is out of tune, and I can't fix that on my laptop. I also have no words for the chorus. We have just written for it. Okay. There will be a guitar solo over the bridge at 3:10 and a spoken vocal over the part at 3:34. Okay. Guitar solo over the bridge at 3:10, spoken vocals over the part at 3:34. Okay. Try everyone to remember that, okay? The pre-chorus also feels a little jarring drum-wise on this demo due to cut and pasting, but it works when we play it live and the drums transition to it. Your thoughts on structure and energy curve would be great, and my apologies to everyone for going twice. You won't see me next week. I'll be mid-recording. Okay, no problem, man. And obviously this is an urgent case, so that's what I'm here for. So let's check this out. This is Evening's Empire with In the Open, or In the Beginning, or something like that. I forgot what the other one was. All right, here we go. Cool melody. I like the bass and drum combination. It's a nice drive to it. Now, this feels like it's dragging on a little bit long. So this is the solo. Solo over this, over a one-note melody, a one-note comp. Okay, we'll talk about it. And this is the spoken word thing. Okay, I can hear that. Yep. Okay, so it's a little bit difficult to listen to because there's some parts where just like guitars just pop in and other guitars go out, and it's just like, was that supposed to be a moment, or is that just the production? I'm sure it's just because it's a very sloppy first production. So I'll try to ignore those things and focus on the actual writing. Okay, so let's see. First of all, I really like the melody of the verse. I think there's a nice drive between the bass and the drums. Again, the whole song has a really nice energy, and I think it flows pretty well. There is two parts that I think you should probably take another look at, and that's after the first chorus. It's really cool that it goes back into the, you know, that section feels really, really nice. It just goes on for too long. Like I was talking over it at first saying like, oh, I really like this. And then after that, like I think that was after 4 bars, it went for another 4 bars or for another 8. I'm not exactly sure, but like it felt like after that I was like, okay, now, but I really wanted to have the vocals come back in now. It felt like that was just indulging a little bit too much. But it is cool. I really like the drive of the drum and bass there. Then we got the solo again, which is over this one note kind of riff, which I think is always a little bit tricky. So generally, when I write a solo, it's gonna be over. And I don't really write solos, but if I were to write solos, then it would always be on top of like either full strummed chords, like so we don't have like, because the comping guitar here sounds a little bit too much like a solo itself, because it's just one note, you know what I mean? So there's similar frequencies here that you have similar frequency spikes here. So when you strum a guitar, it's more of this wave, and if you just hit one string, it gets more of like a kind of like a pyramids in the frequency spectrum. So you're running into trouble there. And personally, I would either for solos, I would either have strummed chords, like fuller chords, could even be like power chords or whatever, but not just one note comping, or just remove the guitars and just have the bass play in the background. So and also the riff is fairly complex, so it feels like it's something that we're meant to listen to, but it's as a backing guitar, I think it's just too complex. So I would personally try to find something there that works a little bit better with the solo. I think the section afterwards works pretty well, even though like when the chorus does finally hit, it's like, oh, like that comes out of nowhere, so you need a little fill there to prepare for that. I think you could probably do like a snare roll or something during that entire section, or that slowly builds and builds and builds, so that when the last chorus comes, it's a huge oof effect, instead of just like, ooh, okay, you know, like the big surprise that it is right now. Because I feel like, you know, the section before it is building, but that big jolt there when the chorus comes is just, it feels like it's wasted potential. Like you could have added more tension to it, to the bridge, so that when the chorus finally comes, it's a moment of like, yeah, awesome, you know. Okay, the outro I'm not so happy with, ending on that guitar da 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 and fading that out. I don't know. I think you should probably find an outro for the guitar, something that sounds a little bit nicer, something that has a more of a finality to it. I think fade out seems like a kind of a cop out here. And lastly, I wanted to talk about the chorus, which again feels a little all over the place. I generally like what you're doing, and I think it has a nice energy and it separates itself from the verse. However, I think again it's a little too complicated. It feels like you sing a good melody and I'm like, oh cool, I like that, that's gonna be a cool chorus, but then you go somewhere else and I'm like, okay, all right, well I like this too, so fine, and then you do something else and I'm like, oh okay, now it's just a mess, you know what I mean? So you have good ideas, it's just like I want to see them a little bit more structured. So if you start off your chorus with a nice header, like if you have a great first line that just sounds great rhythmically and melodically, I expect you to do something with that instead of going on tangents and trying out other things, especially for choruses. You know, in verses you can do something like that much more, in bridges especially. But I'm a very safe writer when it comes to choruses, and I always try to stick to the stuff that I know works, something that just... And I mean, you're going to listen to the Kano Head record and be like, what? I can't hear that anywhere. Like, there's definitely a lot of development going on there. But it's always based off of like the header. The header is always my most important melody fragment, and from there on out, I develop that, right? And you can definitely hear that in all of the songs, I think, on the new Kano Head record. I'm pretty sure. Like, there's not as much repetition as you would expect, but it's definitely always taking that header and finding different ways of saying that same thing musically, like that header. So basically what I'm trying to say is if you have 8 bars to write and you got the first 2 bars, don't think about the next 2 bars in a way of like saying, okay, what can I write here? Think of like, okay, how can I take those first 2 bars that are already like, and put them in a way that sounds the same, so that there's that element of repetition, that element of like hookability, that it sounds like something we could sing along to the second time, but different enough so it doesn't get boring, you know. And how can we do that over a period of like an entire chorus? So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. Now, if you want, we can listen to that chorus again and see if I could tell you what I would have probably done for that chorus. So let's do that right now. This part I really like, actually. Da, 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 da. Again, it's like it's on the edge. Like, I think it could be a little more repetitive. Like right now you're developing maybe a tad too much, maybe a little bit moving a little bit too far away from your header. Like if you did da 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 do da 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 do da do. See what I mean? So you have basically an A kind of structure there, with some minor variations, but kind of sticking to that initial idea. And even the B section is essentially the same rhythm as section A, just different pitches. But right now you're changing both the rhythm and the pitch for your B section. And there's also a C section, which is again very different. So I'm just trying to find what's really great about the header and explode that onto an entire chorus. And exploding is a term that we use in arrangement for when you have, like in classical orchestration, when you write an entire orchestral piece just on the piano, and then you explode it out to an entire arrangement. So you'll take the left hand, which is playing in octaves, for example, and you'll assign that to the double basses and to the cellos, right? And then you take whatever, the left part of your right hand, and that becomes the rest of the strings. And so that's what exploding is. And I kind of talk about melody in the same way, about choruses, writing melodies. You kind of want to find one great central idea, and you have those in, maybe too many. And you take that great idea and you explode it out over an entire chorus. So the idea is you're not writing anything new. You're just looking at what you already have and seeing how you can use that, how you can restructure it, kind of add variations to it so it still stays interesting when we hear it 3 more times. Okay. Hopefully that gave you some good ideas on how to work on this track. I think, again, as with all of your songs, it has a really nice energy to it, and I really like where it's going. I like the sound atmosphere of it, and I'm looking forward to hearing it in its final production. Because also, I wonder how these songs are going to sound, because you guys compress your stuff like crazy. Like, it sounds very, very, very compressed. And I wonder what it's going to sound like in the hands of a skilled audio engineer who just compresses whenever they need to, So I'd be really interested in how it works with an open sound, that with a more dynamic sound. I think it would actually work really well with this kind of music. All right, well, good luck to all of you in the studio, and I hope you can take some of this to heart, and it's going to help you for your sessions and recording and everything. I think you guys will rock the shit out of that studio, and let's go make a great EP or album or whatever it is. So I think you guys got a lot of great material. Just give it your all, do your best, and see how it works out. And feel free to share the same songs that we've already heard with me in the future. Again, I'd love to hear the final version of it and maybe give you a couple pointers on that as well. All right, folks, thanks so much for watching. That's the end of our show for today, I think. Do we have one more? Nope, that's it. That's the end of it. Let's check if there's something in the chat. Nope, nothing going on. So I think we're going to call it quits right now. Folks, thanks so much for stopping by. Take care, stay gefährlich, and have a beautiful rest of the weekend. Cheers.